Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Social Climbing series. If you like this series, be sure to join the Patreon because I've got hundreds of extra episodes on there. So if you are a binge watcher of this channel, if you listen while you're working out or while you're doing other stuff in the background, be sure to go on the Patreon because this content was created to be binge worthy. But I want to talk about this concept of social competition or female competition. And I want to talk about why I don't agree with it. I feel like it doesn't exist, okay? And I'm going to tell you why. But I've seen this trend on Black female YouTube spaces where they have this mindset where it's like, oh, you got to compete with every other woman. You know, what are the light-skinned women doing? What are mixed women doing? What are Latinas doing? What are white people doing? What are Indian women doing? So there's this extreme focus on external forces, like what these other girls are doing. But I want to pull up the actual definition of the word competition. Well, I actually pulled up the definition of the word compete. It is striving to gain or win something by defeating or establishing superiority over others who are trying to do the same. So all of this talk about being against superiority complexes, but when you look up the word compete, the entire point of it is to establish superiority over somebody else. So do you see my first problem with it? That's already a hypocritical talking point right there, because people claim to be against hierarchy thinking, they claim to be against superiority complexes, but then they're promoting this idea that you have to compete with every other woman in the world. Imagine waking up in the morning and feeling so stressed out because I have to compete with 3 billion other random women that I don't know, that I've never met, have no idea where they live, no idea what their advantages and disadvantages are in life. Do you see how easy it is to start spiraling off of that? And I do believe in competition in a formal setting, so an actual competition, like a sports competition, maybe some sort of pageant, something where you're winning an actual prize. So my issue with content creators like Chrissy who promote this idea of constant female competition, my problem is it's making men the prize. It's like, okay, what's the prize that I win for being the prettiest girl at the bar? What prize do I win? Is it male attention? White male attention? Is it a boyfriend? Is it likes on Instagram? So do you see how this idea of competition, it's making Instagram likes the prize. It's making marriage the prize. It's making, I don't know, sugar babying, whatever it is. It's making all of those things the prize. So the idea of social competition actually promotes a pick-me mindset. I recently did a video where I showed all of these Black women who were in these interracial relationships. And I'm not against swirling because obviously we wouldn't exist if it weren't for swirling. My problem is the pick-me mindset. The pick-me mindset, it comes from this idea that I have to compete with every other woman in the world so that I can win the prize, which is, you know, in this case, a relationship with a white man. A relationship with a man who has more privilege than me. I notice that seems to be the trend on Black female YouTube. So then you've got these women taking on these pick-me mindsets, and they're desperately trying to quote unquote win. They're trying to compete with white women for white men. And anytime you make something the prize, you're giving it a pedestal. So what we saw happening in that video was women trying to prove to themselves that they were on the same level as white or non-Black women. So they were competing for white men. And the way that they were competing was by essentially dealing with more bullshit than any other woman on earth. So that's where you got that story of that woman saying, oh, you know, he hid me in the basement for 3 years, or like he didn't promote our relationship for years, and his dad wouldn't even look at me. Okay, so all of that turmoil comes from this mindset of, oh, I have to compete so I can win the prize, which is a relationship. And another problem I have when it comes to female competition, it's like, okay, what are we competing for? Even if it wasn't men, what's the prize that I win? Clout? Compliments? Lifestyle? What is the standard for having a good lifestyle? Because I've noticed women can be very hypocritical sometimes on YouTube. Like they will try to make these talking points of, oh, you know, you're going to have access to a better life. But then they don't tell you the standards of what that lifestyle should be. So that's why I feel like this competition, there's no point. It's not a real competition because people are always changing the rules. And that's why you have us exoticals where, you know, we are pretty. We are living nice lifestyles. We do have social status. But then you got people still gaslighting us and saying, oh no, your life is bad. Your life is still basic. You guys are still average. So this concept of socially competing, the prize that you win, it's always subjective. Society is very hypocritical. Society is very subjective. So one person may value getting with a white man. She might see you as a winner because your boyfriend's white, but then another woman might be like, no, that's not what I view as the prize. I view having self-esteem as the prize. So there's always going to be somebody else dangling another carrot in front of you trying to make you compete for that thing too. So you got people saying you got to compete for a ring. You got to compete for the status. You got to compete to have the best lace front. You got to compete to have on the classiest outfit. You have to have better nails and toes than everybody. Oh no, don't wear foundation. Wear tinted moisturizer so you can compete with the other one. Her face is caked up and your face is not caked up, so you win the competition. So it's like, do you see all these random rules that come into play when you make everything a competition? Number 2, making everything into a social status competition, it promotes isolation because, nobody's your friend. Everyone is now your rival. Okay, so every woman on this earth is your rival. White women are your rivals. Other black women are your rivals. Other dark-skinned women are your rivals. Old women, young women, everybody else in this world is your rival. Have you noticed that in certain cultures where they promote female competition, have you ever noticed that those types of women tend to hate on each other the most? Have you ever noticed that? So you would think that some women would be able to unify, but no, it's not promoting unity. It's promoting rivalry no matter what the circumstance. No matter what, if you are the same gender, she is your competition. She's competing with you for status or to be the token or to be the pretty dark skin or to be the pretty black girl or to be the one that's the most chosen, the one who is the most proper. That's where you get this culture of envy. Have you ever noticed that too? Certain types of women, they actually are promoting envy. They're normalizing this idea of envy because it's like, oh, I'm against her, she's against me, so whatever she does, I have to do the same thing. Have you ever noticed too that women who believe in social competition, they tend to become a monitoring spirit? Because, that's a part of competition, right? You got to study your opponent. So that's where you get these women where they're stalking your Instagram, they're stalking your stories and your Facebook and all that. They're copying your phone case, copying your purse, copying whatever you do because they're trying to study their opponent. It's because they're in this invisible competition. Number 3, scarcity mindset. It assumes that, there's only one spotlight, only one man, only one seat at the table, when in reality, those things exist in abundance. There are plenty of men. It's easy to get a boyfriend. All you have to do is just be a pick-me. I mean, come on, let's be honest. So women who have this socially competitive mindset, though, they have this internal conflict because they feel like there's never enough. So you have to fight for scraps. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever heard women talk about how they feel like they're always getting the leftovers? Oh, I get the leftover of the dating algorithm. Oh, I'm at the bottom of the algorithm. Well, that's because you were trying to compete with other women on the dating app. So instead of simply being single and being happy with being single, instead of maybe decentering men, maybe finding some self-esteem, no, you'd rather compare and contrast your dating app algorithms with another girl who you think is prettier than you. So do you see how much of a waste of time that is? So instead of actually soothing myself, instead of fixing my mental health, I'm over here struggling with desirability anxiety. So that's number 4. Competitive mindsets, it causes you to have more anxiety because you're constantly wondering, oh my God, am I the prettiest one here? Am I the smartest one here? Am I smarter than her? Does she think she's better than me? Wait a minute, Scott was talking to her a little bit longer than he was talking to me. So you're competing for attention, you're competing for notoriety and visibility. And it's like, why can't there be room for everyone at the table? This concept of social competition, it's basically a game with no rules. Because remember, in an actual competition, so like in a pageant or in a sports game or something, they actually have rules and guidelines. They have referees. They have people that can, sit you down on the bench if you do a foul. If you break the rules, you get disqualified. But the reason I don't believe in social competition is because there are no rules. People win all the time, and there are bad people. They're rude, they're mean, they're catty, they're arrogant, conceited, and they win. So that's how I know it's not a real competition, because actual competitions have rules that you're supposed to follow. They have rules and guidelines. Even when it comes to award shows, the Grammys, the Oscars, you have to be nominated. You have to actually be in the industry. So there are guidelines. But when it comes to life, there are no guidelines. There's no right and wrong way. Oh, you broke the rules, so you lost the social competition. No. So that's why it's a waste of time, and I don't believe that it's an actual competition. Anyone who does believe that everything is a social competition, all that means is that they've been brainwashed, okay? Because in TV shows, music, in the media, they often portray women as rivals. So think about like who wore it better, or the concept of the other woman, the concept of the popular girls versus the nerdy girls. So that's just a part of media conditioning. This mindset of scarcity, there's only so much social status to go around, so you have to like compete. Our society has made that into entertainment, beefing with each other. One woman beefing with the other woman. Oh, well, who's prettier? Oh, well, whose boyfriend is cuter? Whose boyfriend is richer? Oh, she's with the Dusty, and then she's with a rich white man, so she's better. Oh, her man is black, which equals Dusty, and then the other girl's man is white, which equals perfect. So she wins. All of that is just social and cultural conditioning. And the world that we live in has tried to train us to have a hierarchy mindset, just in general. So one of the groundbreaking things about the exotical space is we are the first space on YouTube to talk about hierarchy thinking and to call that out. So the reason some women compete is because they're trying to test their rank in a social hierarchy. And so my question for them is, okay, who decided where you rank in the hierarchy? Who's at the top of the hierarchy? Who's at the bottom of the hierarchy, and why? And by the way, where did your entire hierarchy come from? Who created hierarchies to begin with? Do you think hierarchies are created to help you? Because why would I spend my life trying to chase after a cultural norm that doesn't support or serve me? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, and by the way, that's another reason that some women feel like they're at the bottom. They're trying to earn the support and recognition of a hierarchy that doesn't serve them. So they're black women begging white Hollywood to correctively promote them. They're dark-skinned women begging light-skinned women to support their image when those light-skinned women do not represent their image. Number 5, social competition means that you never get to rest. Have you ever heard women complaining, saying they never get to rest? They're always muling, always working. They never get to rest in their femininity. Why not? Well, it's because the concept of competition as a whole is inherently more focused on masculine energy. You can't rest because you always have to climb the ladder of the social hierarchy. And so every minute that you're not climbing and working and toiling and sweating and staying up later, curling your hair more than everybody else, every moment that you're resting is a moment that you're losing and falling behind. So that's actually a side effect of a socially competitive mindset. And it's so bad to the point where there are some women online where they're like, oh no, we have to have a national day of rest. We have to remind other women that they need to rest. So they're so exhausted from socially competing day in and day out. They're competing in a game where they don't know the rules. There are double standards. There's no referee. You can't get disqualified. There's always somebody who has some form of privilege. Don't even get me started on the concept of privilege. If you are competing socially and you're underprivileged, oh my God. I mean, my self-esteem would be through the floor. I can see why some women literally struggle with suicidal thoughts at that point because, yeah, my self-esteem would be through the floor if I had hierarchy thinking. I'm socially competing with everybody in the world and I'm underprivileged, so the game is rigged against me. Number 6, let's think about who started and popularized competition culture. The Greeks literally built Western competitive culture. So Olympics, gladiators, debates, etc. It was about proving your superiority in public. So anyone who has this hyper-competitive mindset, she is literally following her own oppressors. The same ones that people claim oppressed them. Oh, well, I'm oppressed by white males. Okay, so then why are you following the mindsets and the hierarchies of white males then? If you're oppressed by them. Oh, and by the way, why are you dating them? Is it because you think that seducing your oppressor is somehow going to give you an advantage? Because what's the difference between that and a concubine? I'm just asking. So do you see how these competition talking points, they start to cave in on themselves very easily? But being competitive, especially if you're socially competitive, that is masculine coded, okay? That's masculinity. So climbing ladders, winning wars, conquering others, dominating others, subjugating others, proving your superiority on a public stage, publicly humiliating others. That all of that types of behavior, that is all inherently and culturally masculine behavior. So have you ever heard women complain about being called masculine? They complain about being called what? Combative. Why? Well, it's because if you are competing, you have no choice but to be combative. You got to fight for your position, right? You got to fight to establish your social dominance. So this competition mindset, it promotes combativeness. And I'm not just talking about in terms of personality, but in other areas too. You see some women who are willing to physically fight others so they can establish their physical dominance. All of that is a part of competition culture. Going into combat. In combat, there's only one winner, right? And by the way, the difference between utilizing this masculine behavior and then kind of tapping into the feminine, I talk about this on the Patreon. That's too good for YouTube. But if you think about women who are kind of like more in their feminine, they're magnetizing the resources. So they're magnetic. You know how they say, oh, I don't chase, I attract. So they're creating, they're being more creative. They're not focused on competing with somebody else so that they can win this invisible prize. No, they're creating their own prize for themselves. They're creating their own lane. They're creating their own arena. So they don't have to compete to fight in somebody else's arena. They don't have to go into combat with other women. Have you ever been around a woman where she's combative with you? Like maybe she's arguing with everything you say. She won't let you speak in the meetings. She's constantly interrupting you. That is a form of combativeness. She's trying to socially compete with you. She's competing to be heard. So instead of creating her own lane where her voice is heard all the time, she has a scarcity mindset. So she feels like the only area where I'm going to be heard is in this meeting room or at the lunch table, at this social event. This is one of my only opportunities to be heard. So do you see what I mean? Where when it comes to competition, there's always a limited number of spots. It's literally based on scarcity. There's only one prize, right? That's the whole concept of a competition. There's a gold medalist. There's only one gold medalist. There's one silver medalist and one bronze medalist. They are all ranked on a hierarchy. And then you have to compete in order to even get into the championships. And then, you have to go from the little leagues into the big leagues. So women who have a competitive mindset, that's literally how they're thinking, but they think that way in terms of society as a whole. So that's why you have some women being stereotyped as masculine, because their behavior is fitting masculine archetypes. Number 7, it stops people from unifying. It stops people from collaborating because everybody's your rival. So no, you can't collab with someone else because remember, there's only one prize in the end. There are only so many prizes that can go around. There are only so many trophies. There are only so many white men. There are only so many Instagram likes. There are only so many subscribers or business customers that can go around, right? So you can't collab with somebody else because by collaborating, she's taking a part of your prize. That's not fair. Also, whenever it comes to social competition, there are no referees, so nobody's going to save you from injustices. And so guess what? You're more likely to experience anger because if you're going through a social injustice, because remember, society doesn't actually have rules that they follow. They really don't. Not social rules. Nope. So people get ripped off all the time. Certain people get treated better than others all the time. So no matter how good you're doing, no matter how good you think you're doing in the social competition, there's always going to be someone that doesn't want to give you your credit. So for example, let's say you were competing to be pretty and your hair's done, your makeup's done, you look beautiful according to your own standards, and then somebody calls you ugly. Well, that's not fair, right? But since you're not in an actual competition, there is no referee to go and call, hey, that's a foul. Hey, you can't call people names. You're disqualified. So do you see where the problems begin? Women who are socially competing with other people, they tend to face more social injustices. When I say social injustices, what I mean is a lot of these women feel entitled. Like, I'm entitled to status, I'm entitled to beauty, I'm entitled to, whatever it is, a pedestal, and I'm competing with someone else. So if somebody else gets that pedestal, that's a form of social injustice. And you guys know my mindset on this. Oftentimes when people discuss the isms, colorism, texturism, featureism, lookism, classism, capitalism, a lot of times it's really not about social justice, it's really about social status. So they don't understand that they're subconsciously competing for social status. And so when they go into an environment where maybe some other girl happens to get the social status in that setting, then they get really upset and they feel like it's not fair. Because, here I am competing. I spent my whole life competing so I could have social status in every room. I want the prize. Where's my prize at? Where are my compliments? Because that's really what they're competing for. They're competing for compliments. Where are my compliments? Oh, I walked into the bar and everybody looked at my friend who happens to be light-skinned and nobody looked at me. Okay, so she views the prize as having eyes on her, being looked at in a bar. That was her prize. Anytime a woman comes on YouTube and complains about what she's not getting, she is telling you what she views as the prize. And another hypocrisy I've noticed too with content creators like Chrissy, they will say things like, oh, well, we're playing the game to win just like everyone else. Okay, win what? What game are you playing? Is it a relationship game so you can win a relationship? Is it the hypergamy game so you can win a marriage? The prize in that case would be a hypergamous marriage to a white man, I guess, or a non-black man. What game are they playing? Have you ever noticed that these content creators, they never tell you exactly what game you're playing? They don't tell their audience what the rules are of this game. They don't tell them what the prize is that they win at the end. Oh, and by the way, another reason that I don't believe in the concept of social competition is because the social prizes you win, they're never an actual prize. They always have flaws because, we're humans. Humans have flaws. So even if a woman does get that marriage, that doesn't mean that she's never going to argue with him. That doesn't mean that she's going to be attracted to everything he does. But if you think of a formal competition, like the Olympics or something, or like an actual game or a pageant or something, you actually win money. The prizes that you win in a real competition are always good. And they don't usually have flaws. You win the trophy and that's it. You win the money and that's it. It's not, oh, you win the money and the trophy, oh, but you also are going to spend the rest of your life suffering. And there's also a dark side to this. No, the dark side to winning a formal competition is not nearly as bad as the downsides to winning a social competition. Because remember, sociology is the study of society. Who fills up society? Human beings. So winning the attention of another human being, winning the affection or the adoration of another human being, that's never going to come without flaws because human beings are not perfect. So that's another reason why I feel like this concept of social competition, there are no rules. The quote-unquote prizes that you win are very temporary, and it's always going to come with flaws. It's always going to come with a downside, and that's why you hear privileged people complaining about the downsides that come with their privileges. Have you ever heard those talking points? Oh, well, I'm pretty and these girls were mean to me, or I'm white and these people were mean to me. They assumed I was racist when I wasn't. Oh, I'm a man and these women assumed I was a misogynist when I wasn't. I'm light-skinned and people assumed that I was colorist when I wasn't. Okay, I think I'm on number 8. This idea of social competition, it promotes jealousy. So jealousy is never really about the other person. It's about yourself having a scarcity mindset. It's about having this complex where it's like, oh, there's not enough for me. There's not enough beauty to go around. There's not enough compliments to go around. There are not enough good jobs to go around. So when I see somebody else being successful, now I feel deprived and cheated. Oh, that's another reason that I don't believe in social competition with other women is because everybody has their own definition of success. So one person might feel successful with being a doctor. Another person might feel successful with being a business owner. So, how am I supposed to compete if no matter what I do, there's always going to be someone that invalidates my lifestyle? Number 9, feeling like I won a social competition, it's only temporary. And the reason why some people are drawn to it is because it gives a temporary sense of control. But in reality, I can't control other human beings. I can't control what they value. I can't control whether or not they view me as the most pretty person in the world or the most high status person in the world, the most talented. So I can't control the outcome. I can't control whether or not I even get the prize. So why would I spend my life chasing after the wind? Chasing after this invisible social prize that I may or may not get. It's better to just create my own standard of success for myself without worrying about what other people feel is success. It's better to create my own version of the soft life. And I talk about that on here. Please go check out my older videos about the soft life. Just type into the search bar, Exoticals United Soft Life. And you'll hear me discussing that trend as well, and how the soft life is also not a monolith, because for some women, being a trad wife is the soft life. And then for others, being child-free and unmarried is the soft life. So it's better for me to just decide what my version of winning is. What do I think is the prize? And you guys already know what I think is the prize. So I talk about decentering men and stuff like that. So some of you guys have asked me, okay, if I decenter men, then what do I center? For me personally, I center my mental health, my mental and emotional and physical health. That is what I center. So whatever brings me peace, that is the prize to me. If it brings me peace, then I want it. That's my prize. My prize is peace. My prize is having an internal locus of control. Not living life in survival mode, that is a prize to me. So I don't have to be a multi-billionaire. I don't have to compete in terms of wealth. I don't have to compete with every other person in the world. Oh, I have to be the richest woman in the world in order to be happy. No, I don't, because I'm not in a competition with every other person. But as long as I am not in survival mode, as long as I feel that sense of peace and financial security, that's what matters to me. But I also hear some women making these talking points. They'll make talking points like, oh, well, as Black women, you have to face racism both in the Black community and outside of it. And it's like, okay, so then you're basically telling them that they're fucked either way, because you're telling them that they're going to experience isms. They're damned if they do, damned if they don't. If they stay within the Black community, they're going to have to deal with quote unquote Blackistan. Then if they leave the Black community, they have to deal with internalized racism. So if I'm receiving these messages where it's like, no matter what, I'm screwed, but then at the same time, I have to socially compete with billions of women all over the world, do you see how stressful that is? And this is why you hear some women saying that they feel like they have the weight of the world on their shoulders, or feeling like very heavy all the time, feeling like a work mule or a workhorse, or feeling like they're in survival mode. Well, yeah, because if I'm being told that no matter what, I'm going to suffer, but then I'm also being told that I have to be in this competition and win a prize, do you see how contradictory that is? And by the way, quote unquote soft life and competition, that's an oxymoron. It's an oxymoron because those two things don't go together. The whole concept of competing means that I'm working hard, I'm toiling, maybe I'm sweating, maybe I'm studying very hard, maybe I'm like spending long hours preparing for this competition. Whereas when you think of the soft life, you tend to think of moving from a place of ease and abundance. So I have many different options. I have many different ways to attract the things I want. So the way that I think of it when it comes to living a quote unquote soft life, my new metric, instead of competing with others, my metric is, okay, how relaxed do I feel? How peaceful do I feel when I'm doing this? How magnetic do I feel when I'm wearing this hairstyle? Instead of, oh, well, every other woman is wearing a 613 blonde lace front, and so, I got to compete with them, so that means I have to also wear the same lace front, but then wear it better. Do you see how externally focused that is? So I'd rather think of my life as like a form of art. So it's not a contest, it's not a competition, it's me creating something beautiful for myself. My life is kind of like a canvas. That's how I think of my life. My life is a canvas, it's not a competition. I'm not in a lifestyle competition with 7 billion people. My life is like a blank canvas. I can make it beautiful however I want. Number two is practicing abundance thinking when it comes to my lifestyle instead of competing. So instead of this mindset of, oh, I got to compete for this, for the 1% of white men, and oh, well, that's not my usual type, 85-year-old fat old white men, but since every other girl is chasing after that and they're my competition, now I got to chase after that because, if other women like it, then it must be a prize. So I'm just going to follow what other women are doing. No. How about I practice abundance thinking instead? So there are infinite opportunities. There are plenty of brand deals out there. There are plenty of ways to get money out there instead of just relying on some man to sweep me off my feet. And by the way, I am not against like hypergamy or whatever because I will never promote 50-50 or hypogamy. So I do think hypergamy is still the best option out of all the other ones. But some of us are peaceful when it comes to being single. Some of us are fine without a romantic relationship or, a sugar daddy and we have to give him some sugar in order to get our bills paid. Some of us have peace without doing that. So my mindset is what's meant for me is going to find me. And I also try to stay in spaces where the women are celebrating each other. I don't like being around a whole bunch of catty ass women, a whole bunch of competitive ass women. Everything's a competition: nails, hair, shoes, social status, income. I don't want to stay in those spaces. I'd rather stay in a safe space. You know how they say go where you're celebrated? Well, you can't be celebrated by women who are competing with you. So it's hilarious how I hear people saying go where you're celebrated, but then they're teaching competition. Competition means you're not celebrating your opponent. Whenever I see people competing in the Olympics, they're doing their run. They're doing their gymnastics. They're not standing there saying, oh, no, I'm not going to do my routine. I'm not going to play in the football game because, I'd rather just celebrate my opponent. No. When they're in a competition, they go in there and compete. And they try to beat the other person. They don't care if they accidentally injure the other person. They don't care if they make the other person cry. So it's impossible to be celebrated if those people around you are competing with you. So I don't even hang out in spaces. I don't hang out in competitive cultures, if that makes sense. So any sort of socially competitive culture, I don't hang out in that culture. An example is, have you ever heard people talk about crabs in a bucket mentality? Crabs in a bucket culture. Oh, they're always trying to bring each other down, or, there are certain neighborhoods where everybody's robbing each other all the time. Everybody's scamming each other. Okay, those are socially competitive environments. That's why they're doing that. They are so desperate to win this competition of having money to the point where they are willing to rob their neighbor. So that's why I don't want to be in a socially competitive environment, because depending on how bad the person wants to win, they'll do anything to win. And when it comes to relationships, this is where you get the women who they sleep with their best friend's man or whatever, and then they say it's a prize to be the side chick, and then they say that oh, I one-upped her because I got her man. Okay, so that's a socially competitive woman. She's competing with you for the prize, which was sexual male attention. She was competing for dick and attention. Or in the case of the women who complain about dating app algorithms, they're competing for white dick and attention. But another way that I do not socially compete is, let's say I see another woman and she's really pretty. Instead of me getting mad, oh, she's pretty, so I have to compete with her. No, I know how to absorb her beauty. So when I say that, what I mean is when you are kind of tapped into this feminine energy, you're naturally more creative. You're observing based on osmosis. So instead of me thinking, oh, I'm mad at her because she looks pretty, I start observing oh, wow, I really like how she did her mascara. I really like how she did her hairstyle. So it's not about me competing with her. It's more so that I am learning from her. By the way, that's been one of my biggest things that has helped me in life is learning from other women, learning from jealousy, learning from whoever I'm intimidated by or whatever I'm intimidated by, always learning from that. Learning from my enemies. Do you know that I actually study my enemies in a positive way? I will study what are their positive traits and how can I take on those positive traits for myself? What do I like about my enemy? What do I like about her? What positive qualities does she have and how can I take those on for myself instead of simply being triggered by her? That's how I transmute things like jealousy or envy or competition or rivalry. I will actually learn from that person. Number 4, I am not a social justice warrior. I'm also not a social status warrior. So I don't have to compete against other women for social status. I inherently have status already. Status is abundant. There are many different forms of status. There's beauty, there's likes, there's clout, there's attention, there's social media attention, there's in-person attention. I mean, there are so many different forms of status in this world. Even something as simple as being the best in your Zumba class, being the best dancer at the salsa bar. Even simple little things like that are a form of status. So status is abundant. I don't view status as this rare thing that I have to fight for, but you know who does view status as rare? Low status men and low status women. Those are the main people that I see fighting the most or complaining the most about their own lack of status, or they're a monitoring spirit. They monitor the women who do have status because they don't have it themselves. So that's why they're fighting so hard for it, because they think it's scarce. And a part of why some people have that mindset is because they've been lied to. They come from a bad background. So their parents, they had bad parents basically. So their mothers and fathers told them that they were low status. I saw a quote by Malcolm X that I strongly disagreed with. He was talking about how, like, oh, if you're black, you're the least protected, the least provided for, you're the most disrespected or whatever. I would never soak in that sort of mindset. That was a disgusting comment. I don't give a fuck if it's Malcolm X. I did not like that comment. I mean, I will admit I don't know that much about Malcolm X. I know more about like Martin Luther King. But yeah, I can see why Malcolm X was not as popular as Martin Luther King, because that's not an empowering comment at all. Whether it's based in truth or not, it's not helpful. So telling a poor person, oh, well, you're just poor and broke and you're at the bottom of society, do you think that's going to help and motivate and inspire them to be better? Of course not. So I also have learned how to tune out people that don't represent the lifestyle that I want to live. Because people who feel low status, or if they feel like they're at the bottom, yeah, they're going to be more desperate. They're going to do more crazy, outlandish things. Have you ever heard that phrase where they're like, desperate times call for desperate measures, or desperate people do desperate things? So if I'm being told that I'm at the back and I'm at the bottom of the competition, and, I got to catch up with 4 billion other people, yeah, of course I'm going to be desperate at that point. So I would rather just create my own definition of success. So that's a question that you can journal about, Exoticals. What does success mean to you? Because I've noticed some people will be like, oh, I got a boyfriend and he's rich. And then they'll tell me how much money he makes. And I'm like, what? That's not rich. 100K, that is not rich, ma'am. Even 500K a year is also not rich. That is considered upper middle class. So it's still a part of the middle class. But I've noticed that people's definition of financial success is subjective. So that's why, for me personally, I've come up with my own internalized standard of success. You know how I talk about having an internalized standard of beauty and kind of pinpointing what that is? I try to do that for success too. What is my internalized standard of success? Because for a lot of people, their standard of success came from outside influences. So maybe your parents taught you that being an engineer is success, but deep down inside, maybe you feel like being an artist is a form of success. So that's something you can ask yourself. What were the first messages I ever received about what success means? I've noticed that some women on YouTube think that whiteness is success. They think that having a mixed baby is success. So a lot of your ideas of what that means, it came from your cultural background. It came from the media that you grew up watching. Did you grow up watching black media? What ethnicity of media did you watch the most? Did you watch black media? Did you watch children's media like Disney, Nickelodeon? Because if so, you probably associate success with being a pop star, being able to sing, kind of like all those Disney stars and all those Nickelodeon stars. So being a celebrity, being famous, that's what you associate success with, because that's how you were brainwashed as a child. So, not all brainwashing is bad, by the way. I do believe in the concept of positive brainwashing. That's what affirmations are. That's what subliminals are. It's a form of like positive brainwashing. But in order to determine my internalized standard of success, I will actually go back and psychoanalyze myself. Where did I get my ideas on what success is? Who told me what a success is, and who told me what a failure is? Where do my ideas of failure come from? I want you to think of the biggest failure that you've ever met in your life. Who pops up in your mind? Is it yourself? Is it your dad? I've noticed for a lot of women online, the biggest failure in their life is their own father. Their father is a standard of failure. So that's why you hear them saying so much about like black men, for example, or like dusty fathers or whatever, because that's her standard of a failure. So what's your standard of failure? That will tell you what your standard of success actually is, because it's going to be the opposite. So if your standard of failure is your father and he happens to be black or dark skinned or whatever, then your standard of success for a male might be the opposite of that. So that's the psychology behind why you see some of these women turning into pick-me's for like a random white male. It's because he represents the opposite of her failure archetype, which is a black male. Success is just a measuring stick. It's an invisible measuring stick. So what is the measuring stick that you're using in life? For some people, it's money. For other people, it's admiration. For some people, it's relationship status. Oh, well, he didn't put a ring on it. You didn't get a ring. Oh, well, you went 5 years with no ring. Okay, so that's her measuring stick, marriage. For others, it's being thin. Like in my case, I'm in shape. That is a part of my measuring stick for myself. Being famous, always being productive. Are those your measuring sticks that you've been taught? And do those align with like your version of success or living the soft life? And it's funny because the way that you can measure that is think about your views on retirement. Because I've asked people like, oh, what are you going to do when you retire? Or like, what are your biggest goals in terms of money? And they'll be like, oh, my goal is to retire and just do nothing and just relax on the beach. Okay, so that's her standard of success, is doing nothing. That's literally her standard of success. I'm just relaxing on the beach. Whereas for me, there are some things that I want to do forever, even if I'm 80 years old. So yes, I want to have this channel when I'm older. Yes, I want to be a yapper when I'm 80 years old. So I don't see myself retiring from my passions. And that's because doing my passions, that is my standard of success for myself. So if I were to give up all of my passions and say, oh, I'm retiring from all of them. So, exercising, eating healthy, doing healthy meal preps and stuff, no more of that. I'm retired now. Well, that would actually make me sad because my personal standard of success is doing my passions. But the way that you can kind of measure your internalized standard of success is whenever you're on social media, who do you compare yourself to the most? What do they look like? How old are they? What ethnicity are they? What skin color are they? What body type are they? Who are you comparing yourself to? Who's your measuring stick? Think of the most successful person. Who is it? Did a celebrity just pop up in your head? Did your sister pop up in your head? Did a business coach or somebody like, I don't know, Tony Robbins or something like that? Who popped up in your head? Also, who do you admire? I saw some of you guys commenting saying you admire me. That's very sweet. You might want to be a content creator then. Maybe you want to be a content creator, or maybe you want to be some sort of girl that helps other girls, or you care about empowering other women. Maybe that's your standard of success. So who do you admire? And then what about that person makes you think that they've made it? Number 3, check based on your fears. So what do you fear that people would think if you failed? So for example, oh, she never got married. Oh, she wasted her beauty. Oh, she's broke. What are your deepest fears? That will actually tell you what your internalized standard of success is. Oh, she stayed single. She's a cat lady. Okay, then your standard of success is being married, not being a cat lady. Oh, she got with a dusty man. Okay, so your standard of success is hypergamous marriage. Oh, my biggest fear is being called a baby mama or being a single mom. Okay, so your standard of success is being a married mom or a trad wife or homemaker or something. What things did you get praise for when you were growing up? What did you get rewarded for growing up? That's a part of your standard of success. Did you get praise for being smart? Like I know I did. So that's definitely a part of my standard of success. Being educated, being cultured, being well-spoken. That's always been a part of my internalized standard of success because that's what I was praised for when I was a teenager. And another thing I want to say about like success standards and kind of this competitive mindset, a lot of women are competing for things that they never really wanted. So, for example, a lot of this competition that I see where they're like, oh, you have to compete for a man, you have to compete for all this stuff. I mean, they're really just getting that from social media standards, or they're getting that from how they were brainwashed. So success means marriage by 30, and if you don't get married, you're in the danger zone. Success means being the prettiest woman in the room, being the prettiest at the bar. Success means grinding and hustling, or being a boss babe. So sometimes these mindsets, like the boss babe, or like the prettiest girl in the room, or most popular, the pop star, the famous one, sometimes those standards came from the media, not from your authentic self. The next question to ask yourself is, who do you compare yourself to? So have you ever cried on your birthday? Or, I actually didn't know that was a thing, by the way. I didn't know that was a thing until one of my friends a long time ago, she told me that she was crying every birthday for the past 5 years. And then I looked it up online, and I guess that's a common thing, the birthday blues. So are you insecure about your age? Or, because that's another thing too. Some people feel like success means youth, or it means achieving certain milestones by a certain age. So who are you comparing yourself to on your birthday? Oh, well, Sarah, she has XYZ by age 30 and I don't. Okay, so Sarah is your standard of success then. And by the way, there is no hiding what your standard of success is, just like how you can't hide what your standard of beauty is. Anytime you want to know somebody's standard of success, just go on their Facebook, go on their Instagram, go see what milestones they're celebrating. They're posting them because that is success to them. Getting married, okay, so that's a part of their standard of success. Having a baby, looking good in their bikini, having long hair. That's why they're posting their length check videos and all that, because that is a part of their standards of success. They wouldn't be flaunting their failures on social media. That is not the cultural norm. The norm is to flaunt your successes, the things that you're proud of. So when you're looking at yourself, what milestones have you celebrated on social media? That's your standard of success. Is it getting a new job? Getting a promotion? Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.